Part 1. The Power of Stepping Back. Have you ever seen someone change a whole situation just by doing nothing? They don't yell, they don't beg, they simply step back. And suddenly, everything shifts. People notice, they wonder, they feel something is different. Now imagine if you did the same. What if instead of always reacting right away, you stayed quiet, you chose to pause, you pulled back instead of getting loud? What do you think would happen? Here's the truth. When you stop being constantly open, emotionally, physically, mentally, the world around you gets confused. Why? Because most people are used to getting reactions from you. They know how to press your buttons. They expect your quick replies, your kindness, your willingness. But when you pull away, everything changes. And those who thought they knew you, they start to realize they never really did. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that bothers us about others can teach us something about ourselves." So ask yourself, when you stop being available, who gets uncomfortable? Who tries to push your buttons? Who accuses you of being cold? That says more about them than it does about you. It shows how easily you were being controlled without even noticing. You gave and gave to keep peace, to avoid fights, to not lose people who were never really with you anyway. And with each forced yes, each quick reply, each emotional outburst, you gave away your energy. And what are you left with? Tiredness, frustration, that deep, quiet emptiness you can't explain. Why? Because you're giving too much of yourself to people who don't even deserve your silence. This isn't about turning your back on the world. It's about choosing yourself. It's about what Jung called individuation, becoming whole, real, complete. And that starts with understanding. Sometimes silence is more powerful than words. Sometimes stepping back is stronger than stepping up. So let me ask you, how long will you let others control your emotions? How long will you act like a puppet whenever someone touches your wounds? Maybe it's time to cut those strings, to pull away, to become mysterious. Because once you stop being always there, everything begins to shift. For part 2, why always being available drains you. Since you were young, you were taught to always be nice, to answer quickly, to help, to say yes, even when you wanted to say no. You were told that being helpful makes you a good person. But here's something few people say clearly. Always being available is not kindness. It's a trap. As long as you think you have to be there for everyone, you'll keep getting used, drained, and forgotten the moment you stop giving. Why? Because people start to see you as predictable. And when something is predictable, it becomes a tool. You become their emotional emergency button. They press you when they want attention, when they're sad, when they need someone to listen, and when they feel better. They put you back on the shelf, but you don't notice, because you're stuck in the belief that being there for everyone will make someone finally be there for you. But that's not how it works. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to be liked, loved, accepted. It's this mask that makes you too available. You say, "I'm fine," when you're hurting. You reply to messages even when you're tired. You explain yourself again and again like you owe the world an answer. But the truth is, the more you live on someone else's stage, the more you disappear from your own life. Being always available is a quiet way of leaving yourself behind. It's a hidden way of trying to be accepted, to avoid rejection, to control how others see you. But this control has a cost: your peace, your time, your life energy, which is not unlimited. People who expect you to be constantly available don't truly want you. They want the comfort you give, the attention, the emotional support. But once you change, once you set a boundary, once you stop reacting, they get angry. They say you're different. They blame you, not because you're wrong, but because you stopped being useful to them. And this is the hard part. The more available you are, the less others value you. Because when something is always there, it loses its meaning. No one respects what they didn't have to work for. So take a moment and ask, who really deserves your time, your presence, your attention, or maybe more important, who deserves your absence? But before we can answer that, we have to ask something deeper. Why do we always react? Why do we give so much? Why do we feel the need to please, explain, or say yes right away? Carl Jung had a name for this, psychic energy, and that's what we'll explore next. Because your energy is your most valuable resource, and if you don't protect it, someone else will use it against you. Part 3. Guarding your energy. Carl Jung didn't think the human mind was like a machine that just reacts without meaning. He saw the mind more like an energy system. Every thought, feeling, and action uses that energy. So the big question is, are you choosing where your energy goes, or are you letting the world decide? Every time you react without thinking, you waste energy. When you defend yourself against pointless criticism, when you argue just to be right, when you try to please people who don't really care about you, you're spending your strength on things that don't help you grow. And Jung had a warning. What you fight too hard tends to stick around. The more you react, the more trapped you become. People who feel tired all the time aren't weak. They're just giving their energy to the wrong things. And here's what happens to people who are constantly drained. They become easy to control. Manipulative people can sense when you're running on empty. They see you always reacting, always trying to fix everything, always showing up, even when you're exhausted, and they use that against you. Jung said, a healthy mind knows how to hold its energy. This means saying no without feeling guilty, staying quiet without feeling weak, waiting before acting. Because real power isn't reacting. It's knowing when and how to act. Think about how many times you lost sleep over something someone said. How many hours you spent replaying a conversation in your head, wondering why someone treated you that way, what you should have said. That's energy slipping away. That's you keeping old problems alive instead of letting them go. Energy, when protected, becomes your presence. You walk into a room, and people feel it. Without a word, you carry confidence. But when your energy is spread thin, you feel invisible, overwhelmed, weak. And the world doesn't show kindness to those who always give in. So start watching what sets you off. What makes you instantly upset or nervous? That's where your energy is leaking, and that's where your healing needs to begin. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming wise. It means being in control of your own system. Jung shared one of his most powerful insights here. When you guard your energy, you break the stories that others place on you, and people don't like that. Because now we enter a darker place, the world of silent manipulation. That's what we'll explore in the next part. Why certain people feed on your attention, and how simply becoming unavailable breaks their control. Get ready to see the truth behind those who've been draining you, without you even knowing. Part 4. Breaking free from manipulation. Most people think they're in control of their emotions, but the truth is, many of your reactions are automatic. You've been trained to respond in certain ways since childhood, and the people who know this can control you easily. They don't have to yell, they don't have to argue. All they have to do is press the right emotional button, and you'll react every time. Carl Jung called this projection. It's when people throw their own hidden problems onto others. But there's something most people miss. While others are projecting onto you, you become their mirror. And they're not relating to the real you. They're reacting to the role you agreed to play. Think about it. That friend who only shows up during a crisis. That partner who leans on you for every emotional need. That person who likes you, but only when you're useful. They aren't really connecting with you. They're using the version of you that makes their life easier. And why do you keep saying yes to that? Because you're afraid to disappoint, afraid they'll leave, afraid to be alone. But the worst manipulation doesn't come with shouting. It comes with guilt. When you feel like you owe someone your time, your help, your attention, even when it's hurting you inside. That's emotional control. Here's the scary part. The manipulator doesn't need to force anything. They just need you to keep reacting like you always do. But once you stop reacting, the whole game breaks. When you say no, when you go quiet instead of explaining, when you step away instead of arguing, the image they had of you starts to fall apart. And that makes them uncomfortable, because now they don't know who you are, and worse, now they have to face themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror, showing them the things they've been avoiding, and they may respond with drama, anger, or blame. But it's not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you stopped playing the part they needed. Jung once said, "We don't become whole by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you step away, when you stop feeding the cycle, their hidden side starts to show. And it can be ugly. But what about you? Are you ready to be misunderstood for choosing yourself? Are you ready to feel alone for a while, just so you can feel free? Because it's in that silence, that stillness after you break the pattern, where your real power is born. That's what we'll talk about next. How silence, when chosen with purpose, becomes one of the most powerful forces you can use. Part 5. The power of silence. We live in a loud world. Everyone wants to speak, respond fast, win arguments. People try to prove their point, even if it costs them peace. But few know the quiet strength of silence. Not the silence of fear or avoidance, but silence that comes from self-control, from clarity, from knowing who you are. This kind of silence is not empty. It's powerful. It's full of presence. Carl Jung saw silence as a doorway, a space where real change begins. When you stop reacting, you start seeing. You notice patterns you missed before. Repetitions in your emotions, people's games, your own habits of self-sabotage. Silence brings clarity, and clarity threatens those who once controlled you. Ever noticed how some people panic when you don't respond? When you don't explain, when you just disappear? It's not because they miss you, it's because they lost control of the story. While you talk, you're still part of the script. But when you go quiet, you flip the script. And people who need your reactions to feel powerful, they lose their grip. Real silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. It's knowing which battles are worth your energy. Jung said the path to becoming your true self, what he called individuation, requires stepping away from the noise. Only in silence can you hear your own voice. But let's be honest, silence comes with a cost. You'll lose people who only like the old version of you. You'll seem distant or cold to those who only saw what they wanted in you. You'll be misunderstood by those who never cared to understand in the first place. And that's okay, because silence filters. It removes the ones who were only there for your energy, your attention, your help. And what's left? You, the real you, the one who no longer needs to explain, who no longer gives energy away like it's endless, who understands that each word, each reaction costs something. That's why the stronger you become, the quieter you get, not because you're hiding, but because not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence is not walking away, it's standing your ground. It's refusing to be dragged into someone else's chaos. Silence makes others face themselves, and not everyone is ready for that. But you are, because the most powerful silence is the one that rebuilds you from within. It reconnects you to your peace, your values, your energy. That's what we'll dive into next, not just cutting out the noise, but learning how to direct your energy with purpose, because it's not enough to protect your energy, you have to know where to send it, and where to never waste it again. Part 6. Learning to direct your energy. You can know all of this in your mind, but if your actions don't change, nothing will shift. You can understand boundaries, energy, and silence, but if you still say yes when you mean no, Still answer messages that bother you, still stay in draining conversations or empty relationships. You're just lying to yourself in a smarter way. Awareness without action is just another trap. Real change starts when you make small, strong choices. Like not replying right away, taking a breath before reacting, walking away from drama instead of getting pulled in, turning off your phone without guilt, saying, "Not now," saying, "I'm not interested," saying, "I'm stepping back." And here's the key. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't owe anyone an excuse for choosing peace. And that's what makes some people uncomfortable. Because when you stop explaining, you take away their ability to pull you into a story where you're always the one who gives, fixes, and understands. Jung understood this clearly. Every deep transformation needs time alone, not loneliness from sadness, but sacred solitude. A space where you learn to hear yourself again, where you rebuild your identity, not from how others see you, but from your own truth. Want to know a simple way to measure your growth? Watch who pulls away when you become quiet. Notice who tries to trigger you when you stop reacting. See who says, "You've changed," when you finally start protecting your peace. That's not proof you're doing it wrong. That's proof you're starting to break free. At first, being unavailable feels strange. You might feel guilty. You might think you're being selfish. You might hear people say, "You've become cold," but that's part of unlearning old habits. You've been trained to put yourself second your whole life. It's normal that this new version feels uncomfortable, especially to those who like the old, always giving you. But here's the truth. Choosing to be unavailable is the foundation of self-respect. Saying no to others is saying yes to yourself. When you walk away from toxic spaces, you're showing yourself that peace is worth more than fake connection. And when you stop explaining every step, you begin to earn respect, even if only a few people truly see it. Not everyone will be ready for this new version of you, because your emotional silence forces them to face their own noise. And that's when the real break happens. The break from patterns, from roles, from emotional games. And yes, it might hurt. You might feel lonely. You might wonder if you're losing something. But what you're really doing is finally becoming free. So what happens after the silence? What's on the other side of this emotional break? That's what we'll talk about next. Part 7. The Rebirth. After silence. When you stop being available to everyone, something powerful starts to happen. At first, there's just silence. It feels strange, uncomfortable. It echoes inside you. You wonder, did I do the right thing? Am I being too cold? Am I losing people who once cared about me? But slowly, that silence changes. It starts to clean your mind. It calms your nervous system. It begins to heal you. And then comes something deeper. Solitude. But not the painful kind. Not the kind that comes from being forgotten. This is the solitude of true presence, where you finally show up for yourself. It's the strength of the one who no longer betrays themselves just to keep others around. In the space where there used to be chaos, now there's clarity. Where there used to be neediness, now there's peace. Where there used to be doubt, now there's quiet strength. Carl Jung said that becoming your true self, your individuation, requires stepping away from the crowd. It means letting go of the masks. It means walking your own path, even if it's alone for a while. That's what you're doing when you choose to become unavailable. You're not running away from life. You're returning to yourself. You stop reacting to everything, and you start creating your own reality. People who feel uncomfortable with your absence are showing you something important. They never really wanted you. They wanted the version of you that made their life easier. Now that you're different, they don't know how to deal with you. And that's freedom. Yes, you may lose people. Yes, you may leave certain places. Yes, some will no longer understand you, but you will find something priceless, yourself. You will reconnect with your essence. You will finally feel respected, maybe not by everyone, but by yourself. Because when you're not available to everyone, you become rare, valuable, whole. This is your rebirth, your new beginning, the start of a life where you no longer settle for emotional crumbs or fake love or empty validation. From now on, you give your time, energy, and heart only to what feels peaceful, honest, and true. And if you've made it to this point, that means a part of you is already ready. A part of you already understands. Being loved means nothing if you have to lose yourself in the process. Real self-love starts when you finally choose you, even if that means being alone for a while. So now I ask you, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, even disliked, if that's the price of your inner freedom? Are you willing to be alone, if that's what it takes to be whole? If this message spoke to you, type in the comments, "I choose my peace." Let's see how many of us are ready for this transformation. And don't stop now. Watch the next video. It may be more important than you think. Summary: the power of becoming unavailable. This message is about taking back your energy, your peace, and your power by becoming less emotionally available, not out of anger or selfishness, but out of self-respect. We live in a world where we're taught to always respond, always help, always say yes. But this constant availability leaves us drained, used, and forgotten. People start to expect your energy without earning it. They push your buttons to get reactions and keep control. But something powerful happens when you stop reacting automatically, when you choose silence over drama, space over chaos, and no over guilt. You shift the energy. People get confused, some get angry. Why? Because they're losing control over the version of you they depended on. Carl Jung's ideas run through this message. He taught that people project their own issues onto others. The mask you wear to be liked disconnects you from who you really are. Your mind runs on limited energy. If you waste it, you weaken yourself. Real growth requires silence, solitude, and self-awareness. By choosing silence, you break the cycle. You stop being a mirror for others' problems. And while some people will leave, you will find yourself. This isn't about being cold or selfish. It's about becoming clear, calm, and strong. It's about using your energy with purpose. It's about no longer explaining yourself just to keep others comfortable. Yes, people may say you've changed. Yes, you may feel alone at first. But in that space, healing begins. You move from being someone who's always needed to someone who is truly respected. And that's where your true power begins.